The laughter still echoed in Marcus's ears as he ran his fingers over the engine, the cruel words of the customers who'd mocked his blindness, cutting deeper than any tool in his shop ever could. But when Alec Bennett stepped through the garage door, his expensive cologne masking the scent of deceit, neither man knew their lives were about to change forever, one seeking redemption for his past sins, the other desperately holding onto the last thread of his family's legacy. The blind mechanic's extraordinary gift for diagnosing engines by sound and touch was about to be tested in ways he never imagined, as the former Conman, who once helped ruin his reputation, now returned with an elaborate plan that would either save Marcus's shop or destroy what little dignity he had left. Will Alec's elaborate scheme bring justice, or just cause more heartbreak for a man who's already lost everything except his pride? Comment below with your thoughts. Like and subscribe to our channel for more stories of redemption and unexpected second chances, and share any experiences you've had with people who surprised you with their true intentions. Alec Bennett adjusted his designer tie as he stepped out of his Aston Martin, Italian leather shoes crunching on the gravel of the motel parking lot. At 43, he carried himself with the practiced confidence of someone who had spent years convincing others to trust him with their money. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, his tailored suit impeccable, the uniform of success he'd worn like armor for 2 decades, but today the armor felt hollow. Room 217's door stuck slightly as he pushed it open. Inside, the modest accommodations were a far cry from his usual luxury. A single bag sat packed on the bed, his life reduced to essentials after the FBI had seized most of his possessions 6 months ago. Alec sank onto the edge of the bed, pulling out his phone to scroll through news headlines. His thumb paused on a local story. Historic Reynolds automotive faces closure after 50 years. The thumbnail showed a weathered garage with a faded sign. Something tightened in his chest. Reynolds Automotive. The name triggered a memory from 3 years ago. Easy Mark, his former partner Drake, had said, "Owner's blind, can you believe it? A blind mechanic. What a joke." They had orchestrated a simple but effective scheme. Drake posed as a customer with a high-end car, while Alec played the role of an insurance adjuster. Together they had manufactured a situation that made it appear Marcus Reynolds had damaged the vehicle during a repair. The resulting insurance nightmare and social media campaign had been devastating for the small business. It was just one of dozens of similar cons they'd pulled for Contech Industries, a development company that paid handsomely for information on vulnerable businesses they could pressure into selling valuable property. Alec closed his eyes, the weight of his past pressing down on him. The FBI deal had kept him out of prison in exchange for testimony against bigger players, but it had left him with nothing but shame and a desperate need for redemption. He opened his eyes and looked again at the article. According to the story, Marcus Reynolds was still operating despite everything, the last independent garage in a rapidly gentrifying area. Alec stood and walked to the window, staring out at the quiet street of this small town where he'd come to start over. He had chosen it randomly, far from his old haunts, seeking anonymity while he figured out what to do with the rest of his life. Now fate had placed him just miles from a man whose life he'd helped damage. "I could just keep driving," he whispered to himself. "Find another town." But the article mentioned Contech again. They were still circling, waiting for the final collapse. The thought made his jaw clench. His phone buzzed with a notification. The court-mandated therapy session he'd been avoiding was scheduled for tomorrow. His therapist's last words echoed, "Redemption isn't just feeling sorry, Mr. Bennett. It's about taking action to right wrongs when possible." Alec tapped on his phone's map and entered Reynolds Automotive. The location appeared just a 15-minute drive away. Before he could reconsider, he grabbed his car keys. The weight of them in his palm felt different now. Not just a symbol of luxury, but a potential tool for atonement. As he drove, Alec considered his approach. He couldn't simply walk in and confess. The man would throw him out, or worse. No, he needed to understand the situation first, see if there was genuinely something he could do to help. The Ferrari in his motel's garage, a rental that had cost him the last of his liquid assets, would be his excuse to visit. A complex European sports car would showcase Marcus's skills if he was as good as the old article had claimed. Alec pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, needing a moment to prepare. In his former life, he'd been a master of creating personas, the trustworthy financial advisor, the concerned official, the enthusiastic investor. Now, he would need to craft a new identity, a wealthy client with a car problem. But this time, the end goal wouldn't be to take. It would be to give something back. As he sat there, conflicted, his phone buzzed again. A text from his court-appointed lawyer. Settlement finalized. Official record sealed. Fresh start. Don't waste it. Alec took a deep breath and put the car in drive. He wasn't sure if what he was about to do qualified as a fresh start, or just another form of deception, but he knew he had to try. The blind mechanic in his struggling shop represented a chance, perhaps his only chance, at real redemption. Tomorrow, Alec Bennett would become a client at Reynolds Automotive, and then he would see what might be possible from there. The sign for Reynolds Automotive hung slightly crooked. The once bright red letters now faded to a dull burgundy. Alec noticed patches of fresh paint covering what appeared to be graffiti along the concrete wall surrounding the modest garage. The property, though clearly aged, was meticulously clean. Not a single oil stain marred the worn concrete of the small parking area. Alec revved the Ferrari's engine once before cutting it, the sound echoing against the brick buildings. He took a breath, adjusting his expression to one of mild concern as he stepped out of the car. The garage door was open, revealing a workshop that seemed frozen in time. Vintage tools hung in perfect order on pegboards. A radio played soft jazz. From a corner shelf cluttered with trophies and framed photographs, the space smelled of motor oil, metal, and decades of honest work. "Be right with you," called a deep voice from beneath a lifted Chevy truck. Alec watched as a man in his mid-40s slid out from under the vehicle, movements precise despite the darkness that surrounded him. Marcus Reynolds wore dark glasses, his face weathered but handsome, with strong features and a neatly trimmed salt-and-pepper beard. His hands, large, calloused and capable, wiped methodically on a red shop rag. "I heard the Ferrari pull in," Marcus said, standing with quiet dignity. 488 Pista, if I'm not mistaken. 2019 or 2020 model year. Alec couldn't hide his surprise. 2020, how did you— The exhaust note, Marcus said with a slight smile. "Ferrari changed the harmonics slightly in the 2020 version. Plus your tires need balancing. There's a subtle oscillation at idle." That's exactly why I'm here," Alec said, genuinely impressed. "The dealer said they couldn't find anything wrong, but something doesn't feel right when I hit about 60. Marcus nodded. "Mind starting her up again, and your name is—" "Bennett, Alec Bennett." "Marcus Reynolds," the mechanic said, extending his hand in Alec's general direction. Alec shook it, noting the firm grip. "Pleasure to meet you." As the Ferrari's engine roared back to life, Marcus moved toward it with surprising confidence, one hand trailing slightly along the vehicle's contour. He tilted his head, listening intently as Alec revved the engine per his instructions. "Cut it for a moment," Marcus said after about 30 seconds. He opened the hood and ran his fingers along various components, his touch gentle, yet knowing. "Start it again, please." After another minute of listening, Marcus smiled. "Loose heat shield. On the left exhaust manifold. It's vibrating at specific frequencies. The dealership missed it because it only happens when the metal expands to a certain temperature." He reached in, his fingers finding the exact spot without hesitation. "Feel this? It's subtle, but it's definitely the cause of your vibration." The garage door creaked, and a young woman in her early 20s entered, carrying grocery bags. She had Marcus's strong features softened with youth, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Another car that stumped the dealership?" she asked, setting the bags down. "Eleanor, this is Mr. Bennett. He brought in a lovely Ferrari with a heat shield issue," Marcus explained. "Dad always finds what others miss," Eleanor said with evident pride, though her eyes surveyed Alec with undisguised suspicion. "Especially when it's an expensive car. The dealerships just want to replace parts until the problem goes away." Before Alec could respond, the bell on the office door jangled. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit entered, his demeanor immediately filling the space with tension. "Reynolds," the man called out. "Got those papers for you to sign." Marcus straightened. "Mr. Calloway, I told your boss at Contech yesterday that I'm not interested in selling." "The offer increases by 10,000 if you sign today," Calloway said, ignoring Alec and Elena. "Decreases by 10 tomorrow. This neighborhood is changing, Marcus. You're the last holdout on this block, and I intend to remain so," Marcus replied. calmly. "This shop was my father's legacy. Legacy doesn't pay property taxes," Calloway scoffed, glancing around dismissively. His eyes landed on Alec. "Customer, enjoy it while it lasts. Soon this'll be luxury condos." As Calloway turned to leave, a group of teenagers passed by the open garage door. One nudged another, pointing at Marcus. "Hey, blind man," one called. "Out. Still pretending you can fix cars." Their laughter stung the air as they continued down the sidewalk. Marcus's expression remained impassive, but Alec noticed his knuckles whitening around the shop rag he held. "I can finish with your car." "In about an hour, Mr. Bennett," Marcus said, his voice steady. "The repair is straightforward." "I'm in no rush," Alec replied, watching Elena's protective stance beside her father. In that moment, the full weight of what he'd participated in years ago hit him anew. This wasn't just a business. It was a family fighting to preserve their dignity and livelihood. As Marcus turned back to the Ferrari, Alec caught Elena's eye. "Your father is remarkable," he said quietly. "He is," she agreed, her gaze unwavering. "But in this town, remarkable isn't always enough anymore." Alec nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. The contact connection was worse than he'd feared. They were clearly applying significant pressure, and the community's disrespect toward Marcus was painful to witness. He had come seeking personal redemption. But what he'd found was something larger, a good man being slowly crushed by forces that included Alec's own past actions. The question now was whether his plan to make amends could possibly be enough to turn the tide. Marcus felt the familiar shape of his favorite wrench as he stored his tools at day's end. Each tool had its place, a necessity when you navigated the world through touch and sound. He hadn't always lived in darkness. For 35 years, he had seen the world in all its colors and complexity. "Dad, I'm heading out to study group," Elena called from the office. "Mrs. Whitaker called and said she'll bring her Buick by tomorrow morning. Tell her I'll have fresh coffee waiting." Marcus replied with a smile. Margaret Whitaker, 82 and still driving the Buick her late husband had purchased in 1992, was one of his most loyal customers. After Elena left, Marcus locked up and made his way through the rear door to the modest apartment above the garage. His movements were confident here, 15 years of post-blindness muscle memory guiding him through the space that had been his childhood home. He settled into his father's old armchair, feeling the worn leather conform to his body. On the side table, his fingers found the framed photograph he couldn't see but knew by heart. Himself at 28, standing proudly beside racing legend Michael Taylor at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, both men grinning in matching crew uniforms. The memory came rushing back. The deafening roar of engines, the adrenaline of pit stops measured in seconds, the respect of being the man racing teams called when they couldn't solve a mechanical puzzle. For 7 years, he had been one of the most sought-after race mechanics in the country until the accident. It hadn't even happened at a race. A routine day at a friend's shop, a malfunctioning hydraulic lift, and a battery explosion that took his sight in an instant. The darkness had come suddenly, but the despair had crept in slowly over the months that followed. Racing teams didn't need blind mechanics. His expertise became irrelevant overnight. Only his father's failing health and the need to take over. The family business had pulled him from the depths of depression. Marcus reached for the radio, tuning it to the classical station that helped him think. As Buck filled the small apartment, he reflected on the strange customer who had brought the Ferrari in today. Alec Bennett had been different from the usual wealthy clients, more thoughtful, less entitled. There was something in his voice, too, a hint of sadness or regret that Marcus had learned to detect over years of relying on his hearing. The Ferrari's problem had been simple enough to fix, but Bennett had seemed almost disappointed to leave, lingering to ask questions about the shop and its history. Unusual behavior for someone of his apparent wealth and status. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Marcus navigated to it with practiced ease. Reynolds Automotive. "Marcus, it's Joe from Joe's Diner." The friendly voice of his long-time friend came through. "Got an old-timer here, says his Cadillac's making a noise. Told him you're the only one who'd know what it is without hooking it up to a computer." Marcus smiled. Joe had been sending customers his way for years, a rare ally in a town that increasingly viewed him as an anachronism. "Tell him to come by tomorrow afternoon." "Will do. How's business?" Marcus hesitated, holding on. Contec raised their offer. "It's again." Joe sighed audibly. They're turning this whole town into a playground for rich folks. Told me they want the diner location for some fancy coffee place. Are you considering it? Might not have a choice, Marcus. Property taxes went up. Again. Joe paused. Listen, some of us are getting together Friday night. Nothing formal, just the old guard of Main Street. You should come. I'll think about it, Marcus replied, though they both knew he would decline, as he always did. Social gatherings had become difficult after losing his sight. Too many pitying glances he couldn't see but could feel. After hanging up, Marcus moved to the window, feeling the cool glass beneath his fingertips. Though he couldn't see the street below, he knew it had changed dramatically in recent years. The hardware store across the street was now a boutique selling $100 candles. The family bakery 2 doors down had become a real estate office. 3 years ago, things had begun to unravel more quickly. A devastating review online had claimed he had damaged a customer's luxury car, followed by an insurance dispute that had nearly bankrupted him. The community's already shaky confidence in a blind mechanic had crumbled further. Only his core of loyal, mostly elderly customers had kept him afloat. Elena was the one bright spot, brilliant, determined, studying mechanical engineering while helping at the shop. She believed in him when few others did, but he worried about being a burden on her future. Marcus moved away from the window and found his way to the kitchen. As he prepared a simple dinner, his thoughts returned to Alec Bennett and his Ferrari. Something about the man nagged at him, a sense that there was more to his story than a wealthy car enthusiast with a mechanical problem. Little did Marcus know that at that very moment, Alec Bennett sat in his motel room staring at an old news article about Reynolds Automotive and the insurance fraud allegation that had nearly destroyed it. An allegation Alec himself had helped manufacture. 3 days later, the Ferrari's distinctive engine announced Alec Bennett's return to Reynolds Automotive. Marcus recognized the sound immediately, pausing as he reassembled an alternator for Mrs. Whitaker's Buick. "Elena," he called out. "Mr. Bennett is back." He heard his daughter's footsteps from the office, followed by the light squeak of the front door. Marcus wiped his hands and made his way toward the sound of the Ferrari's door closing. "Mr. Bennett," he greeted. "Problem with the heat shield again?" "No, actually," Alec replied. "The car's running perfectly. I came to thank you properly." "No, one else could figure it out." There was a momentary silence that Marcus had learned to interpret as someone taking in his blindness, still processing the disconnect between his disability and his abilities. "I've been thinking about your situation," Alec continued. With context circling and business being difficult, Marcus stiffened. "I don't recall discussing my business situation with you, Mr. Bennett." "Small towns," Alec replied smoothly, "and I've seen the context signs going up all over this neighborhood, but that's not why I'm here." He paused. "I have a proposition." "For you?" Elena stepped closer to her father, her protective instinct evident in the sound of her movement. "What kind of proposition?" she asked, suspicion clear in her voice. "A business one," Alec said. "I'm between careers at the moment. My background is in marketing and business development." The slight hesitation told Marcus there was more to the story. "What you can do diagnosing complex mechanical issues without sight is extraordinary. It should be celebrated, not mocked." "I'm not interested in being a sideshow attraction," Marcus said flatly. "That's not what I'm suggesting," Alec replied. Quickly. "I'm talking about leveraging your unique skills to build your brand. People travel hundreds of miles to see specialists for their exotic cars. They would do the same for you if they knew about your abilities." Marcus frowned. "And what would you get out of this arrangement?" "A percentage of new business generated," Alec said. "And," he paused again, "a chance to be part of something meaningful." There was something in his voice, a raw honesty that caught Marcus off guard. Years of relying on his hearing had made him sensitive to the subtleties of tone and speech. "Patterns?" Bennett sounded like a man seeking something beyond money. "Dad, can I talk to you for a minute?" Eleanor's voice was tight with concern. They stepped into the office, Elena closing the door behind them. "I don't trust him," she whispered immediately. "He shows up in a Ferrari, knows about our problems with Contec, and suddenly wants to help. People like him don't just offer assistance without an angle." "I agree it's unusual," Marcus replied thoughtfully, "but I've been reading people by their voices for 15 years. There's something genuine in his offer, or he's just a very good liar," Elena countered. "We can't afford to take chances right now. The property tax bill is due next month and we're already behind on parts payments." Marcus sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Which is exactly why we might need to consider his offer. What do we have to lose at this point? Our dignity? The last shred of control we have over this place?" Elena's voice caught. "Dad, I know things are hard, but bringing in a stranger—" "Let's hear him out," Marcus decided. "I'll make the final call." They returned to find Alec examining the row. "Serve trophies and photos on the shelf by the radio. You were a race mechanic," Alec observed. "In another life," Marcus acknowledged. "Now, about this proposition. I'm willing to listen, but I need specifics. How exactly would this work?" Alec seemed to come alive, his voice gaining energy. "First, we document your process. Create videos showing how you diagnose issues by sound and touch that computerized. Systems, miss. We build a website, create social media accounts showcasing your expertise with exotic and vintage cars." "Videos?" Marcus frowned. "I'm not comfortable being filmed. It would be tasteful, professional, focused on your skills, not your blindness," Alec assured him. "The point is to show that your other senses give you an advantage other mechanics don't have." "And if it doesn't work?" Elena asked. "Then you've lost nothing but some time," Alec replied. "I'll cover any upfront costs. We can draw up an agreement that protects your interests." "Why?" Marcus asked directly. "Why are you really doing this?" "Mr. Bennett?" The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus could hear Alec's breathing change slightly. "Because I'm at a point in my life where I need to build something worthwhile," Alec finally said. "I've spent too many years in ventures that didn't matter, didn't help anyone." He cleared his throat. "This would be mutually beneficial, but yes, for me it's also about doing something good for once." The raw honesty in his voice was unmistakable. Whatever Alec Bennett's full story was, this part at least rang true. 1-month trial, Marcus decided, extending his hand in Alec's direction. "We'll revisit after that." As they shook hands, Marcus couldn't see the relief and determination that crossed Alec's face, nor the lingering suspicion in his daughter's eyes. "We start tomorrow," Alec said, his voice carrying a new energy. "Trust me, Marcus, this is going to change everything." What none of them realized was just how prophetic those words would prove to be. "We're going to call it Blind Faith Mechanics," Alec announced the next morning, setting up a professional camera on a tripod. Elena winced at the name. "Isn't that a bit on the nose?" "It's memorable," Alec replied, "and it speaks to both your father's condition and what we're asking viewers to have, faith in his extraordinary abilities." Marcus ran his fingers along the edge of his workbench, uncomfortable with the entire concept. "I'm not sure about this. Just do what you always do," Alec encouraged. "Pretend the camera isn't there. I've arranged for a challenging first case." If on cue they heard a vehicle pull up outside, the distinctive sound of a vintage Jaguar E-Type with a troubled engine note. Marcus tilted his head, already analyzing the sound. 1965, E-Type, straight six engine, he murmured. "Running rich on acceleration," Alec grinned. "And that's exactly why this is going to work. You just did something remarkable, and we haven't even started filming." The Jaguar's owner, a friend of Alec's who owed him a favor, entered with a perplexed expression. "3 shops couldn't figure it out," he explained after introductions. "They kept replacing parts, but the problem persists." "We're documenting some of Marcus's specialized work today," Alec explained smoothly. "Would you mind if we film the diagnostic process?" After securing permission, Alec began recording. Initially, Marcus was stiff, overly conscious of the camera's presence. But as he began working with the Jaguar, he gradually forgot about being filmed, losing himself in the mechanical puzzle before him. His hands moved with practiced precision over the engine components. He asked the owner to start the car, then stood with his head slightly tilted, eyes closed behind his dark glasses as he listened intently. "Rev it to 3,000 RPM, then let it fall back to idle," he instructed. After several minutes of this, Marcus smiled. "It's not the fuel system like everyone suspected. You have a hairline crack in the intake manifold. It's causing an air leak that's only significant at certain RPMs." He guided the owner's hand to feel the almost imperceptible problem. "Right there. You can barely feel the air escaping when the engine's under load." The owner's amazement was genuine. "That's incredible. I've spent thousands having parts replaced that weren't the problem." Alec captured it all: the diagnostic process, the revelation, and the owner's reaction. When the client left to order the needed part, Alec turned to Marcus with undisguised excitement. That was perfect, absolutely perfect. It was just a manifold crack, Marcus said with a shrug. No, it was expertise that 3 other shops lacked, Alec countered. Do you realize what just happened? You diagnosed in 15 minutes what others couldn't figure out after multiple visits. That evening, Alec worked late into the night in the garage office, editing the footage into a polished 5-minute video. He added subtle background music, professional transitions, and most importantly, captions explaining the technical aspects of what viewers were seeing. The video ended with the satisfied customer's testimonial. I've been to dealerships and specialists across 3 states. No one could find what Marcus identified in minutes, and he did it without seeing the engine. It's not just skill, it's like he speaks the language of machines. Alec created a YouTube channel, complete with a logo he'd designed, a stylized wrench with fingerprints embedded in its surface. Below the first video, he wrote, "Meet Marcus Reynolds, the mechanic who sees with his hands and hears problems others miss." This is the first in a series showcasing his extraordinary diagnostic abilities. Like and subscribe to follow his journey. Elena watched over his shoulder, her skepticism softening slightly as she observed the respectful way Alec had presented her father, highlighting his expertise rather than his disability. "It's actually good," she admitted reluctantly. "You made Dad look like a genius, not a novelty." "Because he is a genius," Alec replied, uploading the finished product. "Now we see if others recognize it too." The first day brought 37 views. By the end of the week, it had reached just over 300. Modest numbers, but encouraging for a new channel in a specialized niche. "It's a start," Alec said during their Friday review. "I've been responding to every comment, engaging with automotive forums, and reaching out to car clubs. Growth will be slow at first, but consistent." Marcus nodded, still uncomfortable with the attention, but willing to continue the experiment. "Any new business from it?" "Not yet," Alec admitted. "But building credibility takes time." The breakthrough came unexpectedly in the second week. A popular automotive blogger with 500,000 followers shared their video with the comment, "This blind mechanic just schooled an entire industry on proper diagnostics. Old-school expertise that computer systems can't replace." Overnight, their views jumped to 20,000. Comments flooded in, some skeptical, others amazed, but all engaged. Alec stayed up answering questions, building connections, and planning their next video. "We need to capitalize on this momentum," he told Marcus and Elena the next morning. "I've got 3 more vehicles lined up, all with problems other shops couldn't solve." Elena, checking the YouTube analytics on her laptop, looked up with widened eyes. "We're at 30,000 views now. People are actually subscribing." For the first time, Marcus allowed himself a glimmer of hope. Maybe this crazy idea might work after all. Alec nodded, a weight lifting from his shoulders. This was working better than he had dared to hope. The path to redemption was becoming clearer, but so was the knowledge that sooner or later he would have to confess his past connection to Marcus's troubles. For now, though, he focused on building something positive. "Let's make the next video even better," he said with genuine enthusiasm. "Show the world what Reynolds Automotive can really do." By the end of the first month, Blind Faith Mechanics had accumulated over 50,000 subscribers. Their videos, now numbering 6 in total, had a consistent format: a seemingly unsolvable mechanical problem, Marcus's methodical diagnosis, using his enhanced hearing and touch, and the inevitable moment of revelation when he identified issues that had stumped other professionals. The garage began receiving calls from out of state. A classic Porsche owner drove 6 hours for Marcus to diagnose a persistent misfire. A collector with a temperamental Ferrari Testarossa arrived from 2 states away. Each success story fueled their online presence, with customers often agreeing to appear in videos that further legitimized Marcus's exceptional abilities. "We've doubled your regular business in 4 weeks, Alec announced during their monthly review meeting. "The appointment calendar is booked 3 weeks out." Marcus sat at his desk, running his fingers over the Braille financial statement Elena had prepared. "The numbers are better," he acknowledged, "but we're still playing catch-up with back taxes and suppliers." "The growth curve is just beginning," Alec insisted. "We've barely tapped into the potential here." Eleanor, who had gradually warmed to Alec's presence, added, "We've had 4 calls from classic car collectors this week alone. They're willing to pay premium rates for Dad's expertise." The bell above the door jingled, interrupting their discussion. Marcus recognized the heavy footsteps immediately. Victor Kraus, owner of European Motorworks. the luxury car dealership and service center on the affluent side of town. Reynolds, Victor's voice boomed, false joviality barely masking his contempt. Quite the little internet celebrity you've become. Marcus stood, extending his hand in the direction of Victor's voice. What brings you by, Victor? Your technicians? Stumped by another diagnostic puzzle? Victor ignored the offered handshake. Cute gimmick you've got going. The blind mechanic who sees with his hands. Very inspirational. Makes for good clickbait. Alec stepped forward. It's not a gimmick. It's legitimate expertise that your shop lacks. Victor's attention shifted. And you are? Alec Bennett. Business partner. Ah, the marketing guru. Victor sneered. I did some checking after seeing your little YouTube productions. Interesting background you have, or rather, don't have. No digital footprint beyond a few months ago. Strange for someone claiming marketing expertise. Eleanor glanced sharply at Alec, who maintained his composure despite the subtle probe into his past. I'm curious, Victor continued, addressing Marcus again. Does your new partner know about your history? The insurance fraud allegations, the customer complaints? Those were never proven, Marcus replied evenly. And my loyal customers know the truth. Speaking of customers, Victor said, his tone shifting to something more menacing. I wouldn't get too comfortable with your new online fame. The internet giveth and the internet taketh away. After Victor left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the garage. What did he mean by checking? Your background, Eleanor finally asked Alec. Some people are threatened by competition, Alec deflected. He's trying to create division. Before Eleanor could press further, Marcus's phone rang. It was a potential client calling about a rare vintage motorcycle with electrical issues. The tension temporarily dissipated as they returned to work. But Victor's threat materialized the very next day. A one-star review appeared on their Google business profile from someone claiming to be a recent customer. The review detailed how Marcus had misdiagnosed their vehicle, causing expensive damage, and questioned how a blind person could possibly work on complex engines safely. By evening, 3 more negative reviews had appeared, all with similar language, all from accounts with no previous review history. Fake reviews, Alec said immediately. Victor's work, no doubt. Elena spent hours reporting the reviews to Google, but the damage spread beyond their control. Screenshots of the negative reviews began circulating in automotive forums, accompanied by skeptical comments about their YouTube channel. Someone posted our insurance dispute from 3 years ago in the comments section of our latest video, Elena reported grimly. They're saying this is all a scam, that Dad damaged cars in the past. Marcus sat silently by the radio, his expression unreadable behind his dark glasses. It was always going to be an uphill battle, he finally said. People are looking for reasons to discount what I can do. Alec paced the small office, his mind racing. We need to counter this directly, not just defend, but go on the offensive. How? Eleanor asked. A challenge, Alec replied, an idea forming. We challenge Victor and his technicians to a head-to-head diagnostic competition, live-streamed. Marcus shook his head. Victor would never agree to that. He will if we make it public enough that refusing would make him look afraid, Alec insisted. And we raise the stakes, make it newsworthy. That night, after Elena and Marcus had gone upstairs to their apartment, Alec remained in the office, staring at the old article about the insurance dispute, the very dispute he had helped create with his former partner. The guilt was becoming unbearable, especially as he witnessed firsthand the lasting damage it had caused to Marcus's reputation. He closed his laptop and rubbed his eyes. What had started as a path to personal redemption had become something more important, a genuine mission to save a business that deserved to survive. But Victor's investigation into his background was concerning. If his connection to Contech and the original fraud came to light now, it would destroy everything they were building. Alec needed to accelerate his plan. The challenge to Victor would buy them time and attention, but sooner or later he would need to confess the truth to Marcus. He just hoped that by then he would have done enough good to balance the scales. The Reynolds challenge, Alec announced, unveiling the promotional poster he'd created. 3 vehicles, 3 complex mechanical issues. Marcus versus Victor's best technicians, diagnostics only, no repairs. Eleanor studied the design, which featured silhouettes of the 2 competitors on opposite sides of an engine. This is going to make Victor furious. That's partly the point, Alec replied. Angry competitors make mistakes. Besides, he's already attacking us. This changes the narrative. Marcus ran his fingers over the Braille version of the challenge rules Alec had thoughtfully included. The stakes are high, he noted. If I lose, we agree to sell to Contech at their current offer. And if you win, Alec added, Victor makes a public statement acknowledging your expertise and retracting any negative comments about your abilities. You're sure this is the right approach? Marcus asked, concern evident in his voice. Absolutely, Alec assured him. I've already lined up 3 vehicles with complex, intermittent issues that typically confound diagnostic computers. The owner of Classic Auto Museum has agreed to host it. Neutral territory with plenty of space for spectators. What if Victor refuses? Elena asked. Alec smiled. He won't. I've arranged for the local newspaper to run a feature on the challenge. If Victor declines, it looks like he's afraid to put his technicians against a blind mechanic. The article appeared 2 days later, complete with quotes from Alec framing the challenge as a classic showdown between old-school diagnostic skills and modern technology. As predicted, Victor couldn't refuse without losing face. His acceptance came via a terse phone call. Your client is going to regret this circus, Bennett. I'm bringing my 3 best technicians and all our diagnostic equipment. Get ready to pack. Up that failing garage for good. Preparations consumed the next 2 weeks. Alec worked tirelessly, coordinating with the venue, promoting the event online, and carefully selecting the challenge vehicles, a vintage Mercedes with electrical gremlins, a modern BMW with an intermittent performance issue, and a classic American muscle car with baffling fuel delivery problems. Meanwhile, Marcus spent hours in the garage, practicing his diagnostic routines, working with Elena to refine his already impressive techniques. The night before the challenge, Marcus sat, alone in his apartment, doubt creeping in. Am I being foolish, Sarah? He whispered to the photograph of his late wife on the nightstand. Risking everything on a public spectacle. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Dad? Eleanor called through the door. Can I come in? She sat beside him on the edge of the bed. I've been thinking about tomorrow, she began, taking his hand. Whatever happens, I want you to know I'm proud of you. Most people would have given up after losing their sight. You rebuilt your entire life. Marcus squeezed her hand. I had good reasons to keep going, he said softly. You being the most important one. I've been hard on Alec, Elena admitted. But he believes in you completely. I've never seen anyone work so hard to help someone else succeed. There's something driving him, Marcus replied. Something beyond business. I felt it from the beginning. Downstairs in the motel room he'd rented for the past 2 months, Alec was having his own moment of reflection. On his laptop screen was an email he'd drafted but not yet sent. A full confession to Marcus about his role in the insurance fraud 3 years ago. His finger hovered over the send button before he closed the laptop without sending it. Not yet, he murmured. Get him through tomorrow first. The day of the challenge dawned clear and cool. When Marcus and Elena arrived at the Classic Auto Museum, they were stunned to find the parking lot already filled with cars and a line of people waiting to enter. What's happening? Marcus asked, hearing the crowd. People, Elena whispered in amazement. Dozens of them, maybe 100. Alec met them at the side entrance, barely containing his excitement. The video I posted about the challenge went viral. In automotive circles, we've got car clubs from 3 states here. Even a reporter from Auto Enthusiast magazine. Inside, the museum had been transformed. 3 service bays had been set up, each containing one of the challenge vehicles. A large digital display showed the rules and scoring system. Victor and his team were already there, surrounded by expensive diagnostic equipment. Quite the spectacle you've created, Victor sneered as they approached. Too bad it's all going to end with Reynolds Automotive becoming Reynolds Condominiums. Save the trash talk for after I've diagnosed all 3 vehicles correctly, Marcus replied calmly. The museum director served as the official adjudicator. The rules were simple. Each side would have 30 minutes per vehicle to diagnose the problem. Points would be awarded for accuracy and deducted for incorrect diagnoses. The vehicle's owners, who knew the actual issues, would verify the results as the challenge began. The crowd gathered around the first bay. Victor's technician immediately connected a sophisticated diagnostic computer to the Mercedes, while Marcus simply opened the hood and began his methodical exploration with his hands and ears. Watching from the sidelines, Alec felt his heart racing. Everything hinged on this moment. Not just the business, but his own shot at redemption. If Marcus lost, Contech would acquire the property, and Alec's chance to make amends would be lost forever. "He seems so calm," a spectator whispered loudly. Enough for Alec to hear. How can he be so confident when he can't even see what he's working on? Eleanor, standing beside Alec, replied proudly, "Because he doesn't need to see. He understands these machines in ways most mechanics never will." As the first round neared its conclusion, Victor's technician looked increasingly frustrated with his diagnostic equipment. Meanwhile, Marcus worked with quiet confidence, his fingers dancing over components, his head tilted to catch every nuance of the engine's sound. When time was called, Victor's technician presented his diagnosis first. A faulty mass airflow sensor, causing the intermittent performance issues. Then it was Marcus's turn. "The primary issue isn't electronic," he stated confidently. "It's a hairline crack in the intake manifold gasket. When the engine reaches operating temperature, the gasket expands just enough to create a vacuum leak that confuses the sensors." The Mercedes owner stepped forward, barely containing his smile. "I've had this problem for 8 months. 3 shops replaced sensors and components." He turned to Marcus. "You're absolutely correct. The gasket is the issue." A cheer erupted from the crowd as the first point went to Marcus. Victor's face darkened as they moved to the second vehicle. The battle had begun, and against all odds, the blind mechanic was in the lead. While the town buzzed with news of Marcus's first-round victory, Elena sat alone in the darkened garage office, the blue glow of her laptop illuminating her determined expression. The search results on her screen told a troubling story. 1. That Alec Bennett had carefully avoided sharing. She'd begun her investigation after Victor's comments about Alec's mysteriously absent digital footprint. What she found was scattered but concerning: court records, business filings, and news articles that painted a picture of Alec's former life. Alexander James Bennett, former partner at Horizon Marketing Solutions, a company dissolved following federal investigations, mentions in court documents involving fraudulent business practices, a plea deal. But most disturbing was a small article from 3 years ago about a marketing firm working with Contech Industries to help identify acquisition opportunities in revitalizing neighborhoods. The same Contech now pressuring her father to sell. Elena leaned back in her chair, connecting dots that formed an unsettling pattern. The timing aligned perfectly with the insurance fraud allegation that had nearly destroyed Reynolds Automotive. The allegation that had never made sense. Her father was meticulous, incapable of the damage described in the claim. The office door opened, startling her. She quickly minimized the browser window. "Still working?" Alec asked, stepping inside with coffee cups in hand. "Thought you could use this. Big day tomorrow. Rounds 2 and 3 of the challenge." Eleanor accepted the coffee, without a smile. "Find anything interesting at the museum after we left?" she asked, watching his face carefully. "Just talking with some of the spectators. The word is spreading. We might have an even bigger crowd tomorrow." He paused, noticing her unusual coolness. "Everything okay?" "You tell me, Alexander James Bennett," she replied, reopening her laptop to display the court records. "Or should I ask about Horizon Marketing Solutions and their work with Contech Industries?" The color drained from Alec's face. For several seconds he said nothing, his carefully constructed persona crumbling under the weight of exposed truth. "How long have you known?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Long enough to piece it together," Elena said. "You were part of it, weren't you? The fraudulent insurance claim that almost bankrupted us 3 years ago. The claim that destroyed Dad's reputation in this town." Alec set his coffee down and sank into the chair opposite her. "Yes." The single word hung in the air between them. "Why are you really here?" Elena demanded. "Is this some kind of elaborate con? Are you still working for Contech?" "No," Alec replied quickly. "God, no. I'm here to make amends. By lying to us for weeks. By getting Dad's hopes up with this challenge. By trying to undo the damage I helped cause," Alec said, meeting her gaze directly. "I didn't know your father when I helped create that false claim. I didn't know he was blind, or that he had a daughter in college, or that his wife had died. He was just a target on a list." Elena's eyes flashed with anger. "That makes it better." "It makes it worse," Alec admitted. "Because I can't claim I did it out of personal vendetta or emotion. I did it for money, plain and simple. I helped Contech identify vulnerable businesses, then created situations that would pressure them to sell. He ran a hand through his hair. I was good at it, until the FBI investigation. So this is what? Community service clearing your conscience? At first, maybe, Alec acknowledged, but it's become more than that. Working with your father, seeing his incredible skill, watching how this community has failed to appreciate him. I genuinely want to help him succeed now. Elena studied him, her expression a mixture of disgust and uncertainty. Does Dad know any of this? No, Alec admitted. I've been trying to find the right moment to tell him. There is no right moment. To tell someone you helped destroy their business, Elena snapped. I know, Alec said quietly, but I'm trying to fix it before I confess. If we win tomorrow, if the channel continues to grow, if we can secure Reynolds Automotive's future, if, Elena interrupted. Meanwhile, you're lying to him every day. He trusts you, Alec. Despite his blindness, he sees something good in you that I've been skeptical of from the start. Turns out I was right. Alec didn't defend himself. What are you going to do? I should tell him everything right now, Elena said. He deserves to know who he's really partnered with. You're right, he does, Alec agreed, surprising her. But please, wait until after tomorrow's challenge. Let him face Victor with his confidence intact. Let him have this moment. Eleanor stood and walked to the window, staring out at the darkened street. The channel, the videos, the challenge? Was any of it real or just your way of easing your guilty conscience? It started as atonement, Alec admitted, but it's become something I believe in completely. Your father has a gift that deserves recognition. The success we're seeing is real, Elena. The people traveling hours to have him work on their cars. That's not marketing. That's genuine appreciation for his abilities. She turned back to him. And what happens when Dad finds out the truth? When he discovers the partner he's trusted has been lying about everything? Not everything, Alec said softly. My belief in him is genuine. My desire to see him succeed is real. But built on a foundation of lies, Elena countered. They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of secrets and consequences heavy between them. One more day, Elena finally said. I'll give you until after the challenge is finished. Then either you tell him everything or I will. Alec nodded, relief and dread mingling in his expression. Thank you. I'm not doing it for you, Elena clarified. I'm doing it for him. He deserves this moment of triumph without it being tainted. She gathered her things to leave. But understand this, if this challenge is another con, if there's any manipulation in the outcomes, there isn't, Alec assured her. The vehicles, the problems, they're all legitimate. Your father will win or lose on his own merits. As Elena left, Alec remained in the darkened office, contemplating the fragile house of cards he'd built. Tomorrow would determine not just the fate of Reynolds Automotive, but whether his attempt at redemption would ultimately succeed or crumble under the weight of his past sins. The old wooden stairs creaked as Marcus made his way up to the garage's roof. He knew every step by heart. 14 to the landing, turn right, 12 more to the door, 3 paces to the railing. This rooftop had been his sanctuary since childhood, a place where his father had taught him to identify cars by their engine sounds from the street below. Now, the night before the final rounds of the challenge, he needed this quiet space to think. The evening air carried the sense of approaching. Autumn, crisp leaves, distant wood smoke, the lingering warmth of summer retreating. Marcus oriented himself by these sensory landmarks as he settled onto the bench his father had built decades ago. From his pocket, he withdrew a small metal object, a spark plug wrench worn smooth by years of use. His father's favorite tool, the one Marcus had inherited along with the business. What would you think of all this, Dad? He murmured, turning the wrench in his hands. The videos, the challenge, betting the shop on my abilities. William Reynolds had built the garage from nothing, working 16-hour days to establish a reputation for honest work and fair prices. He had adapted when dealerships arrived with their computerized diagnostics, finding his niche with classic cars and customers who valued personal service over corporate efficiency. Would you have closed up when you lost your sight? Marcus wondered aloud. Or would you have done what I did, learned to see with your hands? The rooftop door opened behind him. Marcus recognized Elena's footsteps immediately, deliberate and measured, like everything about his methodical daughter. Thought I'd find you up here, she said, sitting beside him on the bench. Nervous about tomorrow? Strangely, no, Marcus replied. The work itself doesn't worry me. It's everything surrounding it, the spectacle, the stakes. Elena was uncharacteristically quiet. Marcus could sense her tension, a subtle shift in her breathing pattern that she probably thought he wouldn't notice. "Something's troubling you," he said. "Is it Alec?" The slight catch in her breath confirmed his suspicion. "Dad, do you ever wonder why he's really helping us?" she asked carefully. Marcus turned the wrench over in his hands. "Of course, I'm blind, not naive. No successful marketing expert suddenly appears in a small town and decides to help a struggling garage out of pure altruism. Then why trust him? Because his voice tells me more than his words do," Marcus explained. "There's genuine remorse there, though for what, I'm not certain. There's determination, and something else, a need for redemption." "You've suspected he's hiding something all along," Eleanor realized. "Everyone has secrets, sweetheart. The question is whether his secrets make him dangerous to us." Marcus tucked the wrench back into his pocket. "Whatever his initial motivation, his efforts have been real. The channel is working. People are coming from hundreds of miles away to have me work on their cars, and if his secrets directly affected us," Eleanor pressed, "would that change things?" Marcus turned toward her, wishing not for the first time that he could see her face. The face so many had told him resembled his late wife's. "Elena, what do you know?" She hesitated, caught between her promise to Alec and her loyalty to her father. "I know he's not being entirely truthful about his past," she finally said. "I've found connections that concern me." "To Contech?" Eleanor's surprise was palpable. "You suspected that too?" "It would explain his determination," Marcus said thoughtfully. "But again, the question is whether his current actions are genuine or part of some deeper scheme." "How can you be so calm about this?" Elena asked. "If he's connected to the people trying to take our property, because right now he's the best chance we have," Marcus interrupted gently. "Tomorrow's challenge could change everything for us, bring in the kind of clients who appreciate what I can do, who will pay appropriately for it, enough to secure our future here." They sat in silence for a moment, the distant sound of traffic creating a mechanical lullaby familiar to them both. "Your mother always said people deserve the chance to be better than their worst mistakes," Marcus said softly. "Whatever Alec's done, he's trying to be better now. I can feel it." Eleanor leaned her head against her father's shoulder, a gesture she hadn't made since childhood. "I just don't want to see you hurt again." "I know, sweetheart, but some risks are worth taking." As they sat together on the rooftop sanctuary, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here, the accident that took his sight, the loss of his wife, the years of rebuilding his life and skills around his blindness. Each challenge had seemed insurmountable at first, yet he had found a way forward. Tomorrow would be no different. Several blocks away in his motel room, Alec sat surrounded by notes and diagrams for the final rounds of the challenge. Elena's discovery of his past had shaken him, but it had also crystallized his resolve. Tomorrow wasn't just about saving Reynolds Automotive anymore. It was about proving, to Elena, to Marcus, and to himself, that redemption was possible, that a life built on deception could still find its way to truth. He closed his notebook and reached for his phone, pulling up the YouTube channel they had created together. The comment section of their latest video was filled with messages of support, rooting for the blind mechanic tomorrow. This guy has more talent in his fingertips than most techs have with all their computers. Driving 200 miles to see this showdown in person. Reynolds is a legend in the making. For the first time in years, Alec felt the unfamiliar warmth of doing something that mattered, something that helped rather than harmed. Whatever happened after his confession, this moment, was real. As the night deepened, 3 people, prepared in their own ways for the day that would change everything, unaware that forces beyond their control were already in motion. The Classic Auto Museum buzzed with anticipation. Word had spread overnight, drawing a crowd triple the size of the previous days. Local news crews had set up cameras. Car enthusiasts mingled with curious townspeople. In one corner, Alec noticed a group of men in expensive suits, Contech executives no doubt, sensing blood in the water. Marcus stood quietly beside the second challenge vehicle, a 2021 BMW M3 with a performance issue that had baffled 3 dealerships. His hands rested lightly on the car's hood, feeling the subtle vibrations of the cooling engine. "How are you feeling?" Alec asked, approaching with coffee. "Ready," Marcus replied simply. "Though the crowd is distracting. Just focus on the cars," Alec advised. "Forget everything else." Elena joined them, her expression carefully neutral as she handed her father a small leather case containing his specialized listening tools. Victor's team is setting up their equipment. They've brought even more diagnostic computers today. Computers are only as good as the problems they're programmed to recognize, Marcus said with a slight smile. The most sophisticated problems are often the simplest ones in disguise. The museum director called for attention, and the crowd quieted. Welcome to Day 2 of the Reynolds Challenge. As a reminder, Reynolds Automotive won Round 1 yesterday. Today, we have 2 more vehicles with documented issues that have stumped multiple repair facilities. The same rules apply. 30 minutes per vehicle, points for correct diagnosis. Victor stepped forward, flanked by technicians in crisp uniforms. We're ready to redeem ourselves after yesterday's fluke, he announced loudly. Though I think it's important for everyone to know what's really at stake here. He turned to address the crowd directly. Reynolds is putting his entire business on the line because he's desperate. His shop is failing because people don't trust a blind man with their vehicles, and for good reason. When this is over, Contech will finally be able to develop that property into something the community actually needs. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Alec stepped forward to respond, but Marcus placed a restraining hand on his arm. I'll speak for myself, Marcus said, moving to the center of the garage area with remarkable confidence. Though he couldn't see the crowd, he faced them directly, removing his dark glasses to reveal eyes clouded by injury. Yes, I'm blind, he stated simply. Yes, I'm betting my family's 50-year business on my abilities, not out of desperation but out of certainty. These hands, he held them up, have diagnosed thousands of vehicles over 15 years of darkness. They hear what computers miss and feel what technicians overlook. A hush fell over the room as his quiet dignity registered with the audience. I don't need your pity or your doubt, Marcus continued. I just need the opportunity to demonstrate. That disability doesn't mean inability. Now shall we get to work? A spontaneous round of applause erupted. Marcus replaced his glasses and turned toward the BMW, effectively ending the dramatic moment. First vehicle 30 minutes starting now, the director announced. Victor's lead technician immediately began connecting diagnostic equipment to the BMW's computer ports, while 2 assistants checked fluid levels and mechanical components. Marcus took a different approach. He asked the owner to start the engine, then listened intently, head tilted. After a minute, he requested specific RPM ranges, listening to the transitions. His hands moved methodically over components, feeling vibrations and temperature variations. 20 minutes in, Victor's team was growing frustrated. Their diagnostic computer showed no error codes, and their methodical testing had revealed nothing obvious. Check the software version, Victor hissed to his technician. Maybe it needs an update. Meanwhile, Marcus had removed a small stethoscope-like device from his case. He listened at various points along the intake system, then moved to the exhaust. A small smile crossed his face. May I speak with the owner? He requested. A young woman stepped forward. Yes? This car has an aftermarket performance tuner installed, doesn't it? Marcus asked. She looked surprised. Yes, about 6 months ago. And the problem started approximately 2 months ago, primarily when accelerating between 3,000 and 4,500 RPM. That's exactly right. How did you know? Marcus nodded. You have a cracked wastegate actuator diaphragm on the turbocharger. The aftermarket tuner is increasing boost pressure beyond what the factory wastegate can consistently handle. At specific RPM ranges, it's leaking boost pressure, causing the hesitation and power loss. The owner's eyes widened. I've taken it to 3 BMW dealerships. They all said the turbo checked out fine, because their diagnostic protocols test for complete failures, not partial ones, Marcus explained. And most dealerships immediately blame aftermarket modifications rather than looking deeper. The 30-minute timer sounded. Victor's technician looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. We believe there may be an issue with the fuel injectors, he offered tentatively. Possibly a clogged injector causing lean conditions under load. The museum director turned to the BMW's owner. Your verdict? She shook her head. I replaced all the injectors last month on the dealership's recommendation. It didn't fix the problem. She turned to Marcus. I'd like to verify Mr. Reynolds' diagnosis. A mechanic from the museum staff helped remove the necessary components. Within minutes, they had visual confirmation. A small, almost imperceptible, crack in the wastegate diaphragm exactly as Marcus had described. The crowd erupted in cheers. The scoreboard updated. Reynolds 2 European Motorworks. Victor's face darkened with anger as they moved to the final challenge vehicle, a 1969 Chevrolet Camaro with a persistent fuel delivery issue. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to his team. "Nobody identifies a hairline crack in a wastegate by sound." Alec, overhearing, couldn't resist. "That's why he's special, Victor. That's why people will drive hundreds of miles to have him diagnose their vehicles when your computers fail." As the final round began, tension filled the air. This wasn't just a competition anymore. It was a public validation of Marcus's extraordinary abilities versus modern technology's limitations. For Alec, watching Marcus work with such confidence and precision only deepened his guilt about the past. The man deserved better than what Alec and Contech had done to him. Eleanor caught his eye from across the room, her expression clear. "After this is over, the truth comes out." Alec nodded slightly. Win or lose, the time for secrets was ending. The 1969 Camaro's owner, a retired mechanic named Frank, who had worked alongside Marcus's father decades ago, watched with barely contained amusement as Victor's technicians swarmed around his beloved classic car. Their modern diagnostic equipment, so effective on contemporary vehicles, was largely useless on the vintage muscle car. "No OBD port on this old girl," Frank commented dryly. "Guess you'll have to use your eyes and ears." Victor's lead technician looked uncomfortable, manually checking the carburetor settings and fuel pressure, while his colleagues inspected the mechanical fuel pump and lines. On the other side of the garage, Marcus approached the Camaro with reverence, running his hands along its iconic body lines before focusing on the task at hand. "Beautiful restoration, Frank," he commented. "Dad would have been impressed." "William helped me source half these parts," Frank replied. "Shame he's not here to see this showdown." Marcus nodded, then turned serious. "Tell me about the fuel issue." "Starts fine when cold," Frank explained. "Runs great for about 15 minutes. Then it starts to hesitate, especially at lower RPMs. If I let it cool down completely, the problem disappears, then returns again after warming up." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Mind starting her up?" The Camaro's powerful V8 roared to life, drawing appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Marcus listened intently, occasionally asking Frank to rev the engine or adjust the throttle. After several minutes, he began his tactile examination, tracing fuel lines, feeling the temperature gradient of components, testing the tension of belts and hoses. 20 minutes into the final round, Victor's team looked increasingly frustrated. They had checked all the obvious culprits. Carburetor, fuel pump, filter, lines, finding nothing conclusive. "Could be vapor lock," one suggested, "or a temperature-sensitive electrical component affecting the ignition," another countered. Meanwhile, Marcus had narrowed his focus to the area around the fuel tank. He lay on his back beneath the car, fingers tracing the contours of the tank and the routing of the return line. "Frank," he called out, "when you restored this car, did you replace the fuel tank?" "Sure did," Frank replied. "Original was rusted. Through? And the pickup tube inside, original or reproduction?" Frank thought for a moment. "Reproduction. Only option available for this model year." Marcus slid out from under the car, a knowing smile on his face. "I need a thin metal rod, about 2 feet long." When an assistant provided one, Marcus carefully inserted it through the fuel filler neck, manipulating it with expert precision. "Just as I thought," he announced. "The reproduction fuel pickup tube is positioned incorrectly. When the fuel level drops below half tank and the fuel warms up and expands, the pickup tube is drawing air instead of gasoline. The fuel pump struggles, causing the hesitation." Frank's eyebrows shot up. "Son of a gun! That explains why it only happens after it's warmed up, and why it's worse when I'm running low on gas." Victor's technician interjected, "That's just a guess. You can't possibly know the pickup tube position without removing the tank." "I can feel where the tube is positioned with this rod," Marcus replied calmly, "and more importantly, I recognized the pattern of symptoms. My father encountered this exact issue on several GM vehicles from this era, with replacement tanks." Frank nodded emphatically. "William fixed the same problem on my buddy's Chevelle last year before he passed. Said reproductions often get the geometry wrong." The final buzzer sounded. Victor's team presented their conclusion: a possible clogged fuel filter or deteriorating fuel line causing vapor lock under operating temperatures. The museum director turned to Frank. "Your assessment, I replaced the filter and lines during restoration," Frank stated. "Marcus has it right. The pickup tube makes perfect sense with the symptoms." Victory was declared. Reynolds Automotive 3, European Motor Works 0. A clean sweep. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Car enthusiasts rushed forward to congratulate Marcus. Local reporters pushed through for comments. Even some of the Contech executives looked impressed, despite themselves. Victor stormed out without acknowledging the agreed-upon terms of his defeat. But no one seemed to notice his absence amid the celebration. A reporter from the local news thrust a microphone toward Marcus. "Mr. Reynolds, how does it feel to prove so definitively that traditional diagnostic skills can outperform modern technology?" "It's not about one versus the other," Marcus replied thoughtfully. "Modern diagnostic technology is invaluable for today's complex vehicles. What I demonstrated is that human experience and sensory perception still have their place in solving mechanical puzzles." "Will you be expanding your business now?" another reporter asked. Before Marcus could answer, Eleanor stepped forward. "My father has just demonstrated extraordinary skills that deserve recognition. Reynolds Automotive is now booking appointments for diagnostic consultations, specializing in challenging cases that have stumped other facilities." The impromptu press conference continued as Alec slipped away to check his laptop. Their YouTube channel's subscriber count was skyrocketing. The live stream of the challenge had been picked up by several automotive blogs and shared widely. Comments poured in. "This is the most impressive mechanical diagnosis I've ever seen. I'm driving my unfixable Audi to this guy next week. European Motor Works just got schooled by a blind man. Incredible." Alec closed the laptop, a bittersweet sense of accomplishment washing over him. The plan had worked beyond his expectations. Reynolds Automotive would survive, thrive even. Marcus had earned the respect and recognition he deserved, but now came the hard part. The confession that might undo the trust they had built. As the crowd began to disperse, Alec spotted Elena making her way toward him, her expression unreadable. "He was magnificent," Alec said quietly. "Yes, he was," she agreed. "He always has been. The world just needed to see it." "Eleanor, about our conversation last night." "Not here," she interrupted. "Tonight, after the celebration, you, me, and Dad. Everything on the table." Alec nodded, watching as Marcus was surrounded by admirers, his dignified smile revealing a man finally receiving the professional recognition he had earned many times over. In that moment, despite the dread of the coming confession, Alec felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine pride in helping create something good, something that would last beyond his own redemption. The celebration at Joe's Diner lasted well into the evening. The small restaurant overflowed with supporters, customers, and curious locals who had witnessed Marcus's triumph. For the first time in years, Marcus found himself the center of positive attention, receiving handshakes and congratulations from people who had previously crossed the street to avoid the blind mechanic. "To Marcus Reynolds," Joe announced, raising a coffee mug in toast, "who proved today that seeing isn't always believing. Sometimes it's hearing and feeling that reveal the truth." Cheers erupted around the diner. Marcus smiled, genuinely moved by the community's sudden embrace. Elena sat beside him, fielding calls and messages from potential clients and media outlets interested in their story. Only Alec remained subdued, nursing a cup of coffee in the corner booth, mentally rehearsing the confession he could no longer postpone. As the gathering finally began to wind down, a black luxury sedan pulled up outside the diner. 3 men in expensive suits emerged, scanning the crowd before spotting their target. Marcus Reynolds? The tallest of the 3 approached their table. Lawrence Hadley, Executive Vice President of Contech Industries. The diner fell silent. Marcus turned toward the voice. "Mr. Hadley, unusual to receive such high-level attention. Your performance today was impressive," Hadley acknowledged. "It changes our perspective on the value of your operation." "Meaning?" Eleanor asked suspiciously. Hadley placed a folder on the table. "A revised offer, triple our previous figure, plus consulting opportunities with our automotive division." "In exchange for?" Marcus asked. "The property, of course, but with generous leaseback terms, allowing you to continue operations while we develop the surrounding parcels." Eleanor opened the folder, her eyes widening at the figure. It was substantial, enough to secure their financial future regardless of how the business performed. "We'll consider it," Marcus replied evenly. "Now, if you'll excuse us, it's been a long day." Hadley nodded, leaving his card on the table. "The offer expires in 48 hours. A man of your talents deserves proper compensation, Mr. Reynolds. Don't let sentimentality cost you your future." After the Contech executives departed, the diner gradually emptied until only Marcus, Eleanor, and Alec remained, along with Joe wiping down the counter. "That was quite an offer," Joe commented, bringing fresh coffee to their table. "They must be worried after today's show." "They should be," Elena said. "We've had booking requests from classic car owners all over the country since the live stream. Dad's skills are finally being recognized." Joe excused himself to the kitchen, leaving the three alone in the quiet diner. "We need to talk," Elena said, breaking the heavy silence. "All of us." Marcus sensed the tension immediately. "What's going on?" Alec set down his coffee cup, the soft clink against the saucer sounding unnaturally loud in the empty diner. "I haven't been honest with you, Marcus, about who I am, about why I'm really here." "I'm listening," Marcus said, his expression unreadable behind his dark glasses. 3 years ago, I worked for a marketing firm that had a special contract with Contech Industries," Alec began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "We identified promising properties for development and created situations that would pressure owners to sell." Marcus remained still, but Elena watched his hands tighten almost imperceptibly around his coffee mug. "I was part of a team that targeted Reynolds Automotive," Alec continued. "We manufactured the insurance fraud allegation that nearly bankrupted you, the claim about damaging that customer's luxury car." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's face revealed nothing, but the rigid set of his shoulders spoke volumes. "My partner posed as the customer with the damaged car," Alec explained. "I played the role of the insurance adjuster. We fabricated evidence, manipulated the situation. The goal was to destroy your reputation, create financial pressure, and force you to sell to Contech. All this time," Marcus finally said, his voice terrifyingly calm, "you've been what? Assuaging your guilt? Using me for some kind of personal redemption?" "At first, yes," Alec admitted. "When I recognized your garage, learned you were still in business despite what we'd done, I saw a chance to make amends by lying to me for weeks, by pretending to believe in me while knowing you helped destroy my reputation." "The YouTube channel, the challenge, none of that was a lie," Alec insisted. "My methods for approaching you were wrong, but my belief in your abilities is absolutely genuine." "Eleanor?" Marcus turned to his daughter. "Did you know about this?" "Not until yesterday," she replied softly. "I found connections between Alec and Contech while researching online." Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. With remarkable precision, he navigated toward the door without his cane. "Dad, wait," Elena started. "I need air," he said curtly. "Don't follow me." The bell above the door jingled. As he left, the sound incongruously cheerful in the heavy atmosphere, Elena turned to Alec, her expression a mixture of anger and pity. "You should have told him from the beginning." "Would he have given me a chance if I had?" Alec asked. "Would you?" "We'll never know now, will we?" She gathered her things. "I need to make sure he gets home safely." "Elena," Alec called as she reached the door. "Everything else was real. The channel is working. The challenge was legitimate. Your father's business can thrive now." "Maybe," she conceded. "But at what cost? His trust isn't something easily rebuilt." She paused. "Don't come to the garage. Tomorrow, I'll contact you about the channel." After she left, Alec sat alone in the empty diner, the triumph of the day's victory completely overshadowed by the damage of his confession. Joe emerged from the kitchen, having overheard everything. He refilled Alec's coffee without comment, then said simply, "Marcus Reynolds is the most forgiving man I know, but even saints have their limits." "I didn't expect forgiveness," Alec replied. "Just the chance to set things right." "And have you?" Joe asked. "Set things right?" Alec stared into his coffee, the question hanging unanswered in the quiet diner. The familiar darkness had always been a constant in Marcus's life since the accident, a condition he had learned to navigate with remarkable adaptation. But the darkness that enveloped him now as he sat alone in his apartment was different, heavier, more oppressive. It was the darkness of betrayal. For a week following Alec's confession, Marcus had gone through the motions of daily life with mechanical precision. He opened the garage each morning, worked on scheduled vehicles, and closed. Each evening, he spoke when necessary, ate when reminded, and slept fitfully when exhaustion overcame him. But the spark, the passion that had sustained him through 15 years of blindness, had dimmed. "Dad, you have 3 new appointments today," Elena said, entering the apartment with coffee and breakfast. "Including that Porsche owner from Connecticut who saw the challenge video." Marcus nodded without enthusiasm. "I'll be down in 20 minutes. Elena set the tray down and sat beside him on the sofa. "It's been a week," she said gently. "The channel has over 200,000 subscribers now. The phone rings constantly." "You've been managing it well," Marcus replied. "I appreciate that. That's not what I meant." Elena took her father's hand. "You're going through the motions, but you're not really here. You haven't been since Alec's confession." Marcus pulled his hand away. "I trusted him, Elena. Not just with the business, but with—" He trailed off, unable to articulate the deeper betrayal that he had allowed himself to believe in someone again, to form a friendship based on what he thought was mutual respect. "I know," she said softly, "but the work you two did together is bearing fruit. We've had more new customers in a week than in the previous 6 months combined." "Built on a foundation of lies," Marcus echoed her own words to Alec. "The lies were his," Elena countered. "Your skill, your knowledge, that's always been real." Marcus stood and moved to the window, his ritual of facing the world he could no longer see. "Have you spoken with him?" "He calls daily to check on the channel and forward new business inquiries," Elena admitted. "He's respecting your wish for distance." Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang with the distinctive tone he'd assigned to unknown numbers. Elena answered it, her professional tone quickly giving way to confusion. "What do you mean frozen?" she asked, alarm rising in her voice. "That's impossible. We've done nothing wrong." After a tense conversation, she hung up, her breathing shallow with panic. "Dad, the bank account has been frozen. Something about, say, fraud investigation." Marcus turned from the window. "What fraud?" The bank representative wouldn't give details, just said there's been a complaint filed alleging fraudulent business practices and misrepresentation. The pieces clicked together in Marcus's mind immediately. "Victor. Has to be," Eleanor agreed. "He's retaliating for the challenge." The morning deteriorated further when they arrived downstairs to find a notice taped to the garage door. A formal complaint had been filed with the state licensing board, questioning whether a blind mechanic could legally certify vehicle repairs. "They're attacking from all angles," Eleanor fumed, crumpling the notice. "They can't beat you fairly, so they're using bureaucracy." The Connecticut Porsche owner arrived as scheduled, but appeared uncomfortable. "I saw some concerning reviews online this morning," he explained awkwardly. "People claiming the YouTube videos were staged? Something about pre-arranged diagnoses?" "Absolutely false," Elena insisted. "My father diagnosed those vehicles legitimately." Despite her assurances, the customer left without booking an appointment, promising to think about it. By afternoon, the pattern was clear. 3 more appointments cancelled. The YouTube comment section filled with suddenly skeptical voices, questioning whether a blind mechanic could possibly perform the feats shown in their videos. "They're orchestrating a smear campaign," Elena realized, showing Marcus the sudden flood of negative comments and reviews across multiple platforms. Just like 3 years ago with the insurance claim. Marcus sat heavily in his office chair, the weight of déjà vu pressing down on him. After everything, the challenge, the public validation, the growing recognition, history was repeating itself. "Maybe we should consider Contact's offer," he said quietly. "Take the money and start fresh somewhere else." "Dad, no," Elena protested. "That's exactly what they want. We can fight this." "With what resources? Our account is frozen. The licensing board investigation could take months. Meanwhile, we have no income." Eleanor paced the small office. "We need legal help, and someone who understands how these smear campaigns work." They both knew who that someone was, but neither spoke his name. That evening, after Eleanor had gone upstairs, Marcus sat alone in the darkened garage. His fingers traced the contours of the tools hanging on the pegboard, each one a familiar friend, extensions of the hands that had become his eyes. The sound of the side door opening interrupted his thoughts. Expecting Elena, he was surprised to hear Joe's familiar footsteps instead. "Brought you dinner," Joe announced. "Figure you probably haven't eaten." "Not hungry," Marcus replied. Joe set the container down. "Heard about the account freeze and the licensing complaint. Word travels fast." "The beginning of the end," Marcus said with resignation. "Again, Maybe, maybe not. Joe pulled up a stool. That Bennett fellow came by the diner today. Marcus stiffened at the mention of Alec's name. He knows what's happening, Joe continued. Says it's straight from the Contech playbook. The same tactics they've used dozens of times. Freeze assets, file regulatory complaints, spread online rumors. He would know, Marcus replied bitterly. He helped write the playbook. He also says he knows how to fight it. Joe's voice softened. Marcus, I've known you since you were a kid hanging around your dad's garage. I've watched you rebuild your life after losing your sight. You've never been one to surrender. This is different. They're not just attacking my business. They're using my blindness against me, making it a liability rather than the adaptation I've worked 15 years to perfect. All the more reason to fight back, Joe insisted. And sometimes, the best person to help you fight is someone who knows the enemy's tactics from the inside. Marcus shook his head. I can't trust him again. Not asking you to trust him, Joe replied, standing to leave. Just suggesting you hear what he has to say. Sometimes the path forward requires walking alongside people who've wronged us. After Joe left, Marcus sat motionless in the darkness that had once again become his enemy, rather than his companion. Outside, rain began to fall, drops tapping against the garage windows like the steady countdown of a timer running out. The rain had intensified to a steady downpour by the time Alec's car pulled up outside Reynolds Automotive. He sat for several minutes, wiping condensation from the windshield as he gathered his courage. The folder beside him contained everything. Documents from his time with Contech, evidence of their tactics and a plan to fight back. Whether Marcus would listen was another matter entirely. The garage appeared closed, but a faint light glowed. From the office window, Alec approached the side door and knocked, rain soaking through his jacket. Elena answered, her expression guarded. He's upstairs. Will he see me? I don't know, she admitted. But we're running out of options. She led him through the darkened garage to the stairs. He's in the living room. I'll be down here if you need me. Alec climbed the stairs slowly. Each step weighted with the consequences of his past actions. The apartment door was unlocked. Inside, Marcus sat in an armchair facing the window, rain streaming down the glass behind him. Elena said you might come, Marcus stated without turning. Joe mentioned you had information. I do, Alec confirmed, remaining near the door. About what Contech and Victor are doing and how to counter it. Why should I believe anything you say? Because I helped create the playbook they're using against you, Alec replied honestly. And because despite everything, I still believe in what we built together. Marcus gestured to the chair opposite his. Say what you came to say. Alec sat, placing the folder on the coffee table between them. First, I need to tell you everything. Not just about 3 years ago, but about who I really am. For the next 15 minutes, Alec spoke without interruption. About his childhood in poverty, his talent for persuasion discovered early, his gradual slide from legitimate marketing into increasingly questionable enterprises. He explained how Contech had recruited him specifically for his ability to create narratives that could pressure small business owners to sell valuable properties. We targeted dozens of businesses in developing areas, Alec explained, family-owned shops on land that developers wanted. My job was to find vulnerabilities, financial struggles, pending retirements, family disputes, anything that would make an owner more likely to sell. And my vulnerability was my blindness, Marcus stated flatly. Yes, Alec acknowledged. When we identified Reynolds Automotive, my partner Drake immediately saw an opportunity. A blind mechanic running a struggling business on prime real estate. It seemed like an easy mark. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. The insurance fraud allegation was our standard approach. Create a problem that would damage reputation and finances simultaneously. We never expected you to survive it. Alec's voice grew quieter. But you did. And when I came back to town after my own downfall, saw that you were still here, still fighting, you decided to ease your conscience. By pretending to help me, Marcus finished. At first, Alec admitted, but something changed. Watching you work, seeing your extraordinary abilities, understanding what you've overcome, my motivation shifted. I genuinely wanted to help you succeed, to undo the damage I'd helped cause. Rain pattered against the windows, filling the silence. Between them, the challenge, the YouTube channel, those were real, Alec continued. My belief in your skills is absolute. What I did to you was unforgivable, but what we built together is legitimate. Marcus finally turned toward him. You've had your confession. Now tell me what they're doing and how to stop it. Alec opened the folder, detailing Contech's three-pronged attack strategy: financial strangulation through account freezes, regulatory, harassment through licensing complaints, and reputation destruction through coordinated online smear campaigns. They're following the exact template we used dozens of times, Alec explained. The goal is to make surrender seem like the only option. And your counterplan? First, we document everything and file complaints with the banking regulator for the improper account freeze. I have contacts who can expedite this. Alec flipped through his notes. Second, we address the licensing board complaint with testimonials from certified mechanics who can vouch for your methods and expertise. And the online smear campaign. That's where we go on offense, Alec said, his voice gaining energy. We release a special video exposing exactly what's happening, how Contech and Victor are retaliating because you humiliated them fairly. We show evidence of their coordinated attack. Evidence you conveniently have because you helped design these tactics, Marcus observed. Exactly, Alec acknowledged. I know where the bodies are buried because I helped dig the graves. Marcus stood and moved to the window, his back to Alec. Even if we counter their current attacks, what's to stop them from trying again? Contech has resources we can't match. Because this time we make it public. We make it a story about corporate bullying, about discrimination against a disabled business owner. Alec paused. And because I'm willing to go on record about Contech's tactics, I'll burn my own bridges completely. Why would you do that? Marcus asked. What do you get out of this? The question hung in the air between them. Alec stood and approached Marcus, stopping a respectful distance away. Because working with you these past weeks showed me what it means to build something worthwhile, he said quietly. All my life. I've used my skills to manipulate and deceive. For once I used them to help someone deserving succeed. Pretty words, Marcus replied. But trust is earned through actions, not speeches. I know, Alec agreed. That's why I've already filed official whistleblower complaints with the State Attorney General's office detailing Contech's practices. I've given statements about my own involvement. I've burned my bridges regardless of whether you accept my help. This caught Marcus by surprise. You've already done this? Yesterday, Alec confirmed. My statement specifically details how we targeted you 3 years ago and how they're using the same tactics now. The AG's office was particularly interested in the pattern of discrimination against a disabled business owner. For the first time, Marcus's rigid posture softened slightly. That was a significant risk for you to take. Less significant than the risk you take every day, Alec replied. Believing in yourself when the world expects you to fail. A long silence followed, broken only by the steady rhythm of rain against the windows. Finally, Marcus turned to face Alec. I don't forgive you, he stated clearly. What you did 3 years ago cost me more than you know. It wasn't just financial, it was the community's trust, customers I'd spent years building relationships with. I understand, Alec said quietly. But, Marcus continued, I can work with you to fight this, not as friends, not as partners, as people with a common enemy and complementary skills. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. Alec nodded, though he knew Marcus couldn't see the gesture. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to finish what we started. Then let's get to work, Marcus said, moving toward the door. Elena needs to hear this plan, too. As they descended the stairs to the garage, Alec realized that redemption wasn't found in forgiveness or absolution, but in the opportunity to take meaningful action, to use his talents finally, for something worthy of the effort. The garage transformed into a war room over the next 72 hours. Elena cleared the main workbench, covering it with laptops, documents, and takeout containers as they worked around the clock. Alec's whistleblower filing had bought them some breathing room. The bank had temporarily unfrozen their account pending investigation, but the licensing board complaint and online smear campaign continued unabated. We need to address each attack simultaneously, Alec explained, organizing their strategy. Elena, you're handling the licensing board response. She nodded, barely looking up from her laptop. I've collected testimonials from 5 ASE-certified mechanics who've observed Dad's work, plus letters from 3 automotive engineering professors explaining how non-visual diagnostic techniques are both valid and valuable. Good, I'm coordinating. With my contact at the banking commission about the improper freeze. Alec turned to Marcus. But the most important element is your story, directly addressing the public. Marcus frowned. I'm not comfortable being the center of attention. You already are, Alec pointed out gently. The YouTube channel has over 250,000 subscribers now. People are invested in your story. We need to use that platform. To do what exactly? To tell the truth, Alec replied. The complete truth. About your journey from race mechanic to blind diagnostician. About context tactics. About how Victor and his corporate backers are trying to destroy you because you beat them fairly. And about your role in all this? Marcus asked pointedly. Alec didn't hesitate. Especially about my role. I'll appear on camera, explain exactly what I did 3 years ago, and how I've witnessed the same playbook being used now. Eleanor looked up in surprise. You'd publicly admit to fraud? The statute of limitations has passed on those specific actions, Alec explained, and I've already detailed everything in my whistleblower filing. My reputation doesn't matter. Yours does. Marcus considered this. It would be powerful, he acknowledged, but also risky. We'd be directly challenging Contek and Victor. They've already declared war, Elena pointed out. We're just choosing the battlefield. The planning continued into the night. Joe arrived with sandwiches and coffee, staying to offer suggestions, based on his decades in the community. Frank from the Challenge brought 2 retired mechanics who volunteered to speak on camera about Marcus's extraordinary skills. By morning, they had outlined a comprehensive response. First, a formal legal challenge to the licensing board complaint, accompanied by expert testimonials and documentation of Marcus's diagnostic accuracy record. Second, a formal complaint to the state attorney. General expanding on Alec's whistleblower filing, detailing the coordinated attack on a disabled business owner. Third, and most crucial, a special YouTube video that would tell the complete, unvarnished truth. We'll need to film it today, Alec said as dawn broke, before they can escalate further. Elena set up the camera while Alec arranged the garage for filming. They decided on a simple setting, Marcus at his workbench, surrounded by the tools of his trade. Just speak from the heart, Alec advised as they prepared to record. Tell your story truthfully, without embellishment. The facts are compelling enough. Marcus nodded, removing his dark glasses, something he rarely did in public. If we're going for truth, let people see what they're really dealing with. The camera rolled, capturing Marcus's journey in his own words, the accident that took his sight, the years of rebuilding his skills, the specialized techniques he'd developed to diagnose vehicles through sound and touch. He explained the challenge against Victor's team without bitterness, focusing instead on what it represented, the validation of different abilities rather than the triumph over an opponent. Then came the difficult part, addressing the current attacks. 3 years ago, Marcus explained, looking directly at the camera with clouded eyes that somehow still conveyed dignity, someone created a false insurance claim against my business. That claim damaged my reputation and nearly bankrupted me. Now, after winning a public challenge against a competitor, I find myself under attack again. My bank account frozen, my license questioned, my integrity smeared online. He paused. What I didn't know until recently was that these attacks follow a specific pattern, a corporate playbook designed to pressure small business owners to sell valuable property. Alec moved into frame, sitting beside Marcus. My name is Alec Bennett. 3 years ago, I helped create that false claim against Reynolds Automotive as part of my work for Contek Industries. We targeted Marcus specifically because of his blindness, assuming it made him vulnerable. With remarkable composure, Alec detailed Contek's tactics, the methods used to pressure business owners, and the specific ways they exploited Marcus's disability. I came back to make amends, Alec continued, to help undo the damage I'd caused. What I discovered was an extraordinary mechanic whose disability had become his greatest strength, enhancing his diagnostic abilities beyond what most sighted mechanics can achieve. Elena joined them on camera, explaining the current attacks and presenting documentation of the coordinated campaign against them. We're not asking for sympathy, she concluded. We're asking for fairness. Judge my father's work on its merits, not on assumptions about his disability. As they finished filming, a car pulled up outside. Through the open garage door, they saw Victor Krause emerge, his face flushed with anger. You think this whistleblower nonsense will save you? He demanded, storming into the garage. Contek has lawyers who will bury these allegations. Perhaps, Marcus replied calmly. But can they bury this? He gestured to the camera, still recording. Every word you say is being captured, Victor. Care to explain your coordination with Contech to destroy a competitor after losing a fair challenge? Victor paled, suddenly aware of the camera. You're making a mistake, he warned, backing toward the door. This isn't over. Actually, Alec replied, I think it's just beginning. After Victor hastily departed, Alec turned to Marcus and Eleanor. His reaction just gave us the perfect ending for our video. Now we need to move quickly before they can counterattack. Elena began editing immediately, working to condense hours of footage into a powerful 15-minute narrative. Alec coordinated, with sympathetic automotive bloggers and journalists, preparing them for the video's release. By sunset, everything was ready. Their counterattack wasn't just a defense of Reynolds Automotive. It was a public reckoning that would expose corporate tactics, normally hidden in the shadows. Once we release this, Alec warned, there's no turning back. Contech will respond aggressively. Marcus nodded, his expression resolute. Some things are worth fighting for. My father built this business on honesty and skill. I won't let it die because of corporate greed. Eleanor's finger hovered over the upload button. Ready? Do it, Marcus and Alec said in unison. The video began. Uploading. A digital pebble about to create ripples that would soon become waves. The video, titled Blind Faith, How Corporate Tactics Target Small Businesses, exceeded all their expectations. Within 24 hours, it had accumulated over 2 million views. By the end of the week, that number had quintupled. Major automotive channels shared it. Disability rights organizations amplified it. Local news stations picked up the story, followed quickly by regional outlets. By the 10th day, a national morning show had invited Marcus and Elena to appear as guests. We can't. Keep up with the comments, Elena reported, scrolling through the seemingly endless responses. People are sharing their own stories of being pressured by developers. Some are even naming Contech specifically. Any response from Victor or Contech? Marcus asked, sitting at his workbench tuning a carburetor by feel, a task that helped him think. Nothing public, Alec replied. But my contacts say there's panic behind the scenes. The Attorney General's office has expanded their investigation based on the additional evidence in our video. The garage phone rang constantly, not just with appointment requests, but with journalists seeking comments and business owners sharing similar experiences. Eleanor had to enlist Joe's teenage granddaughter as a temporary receptionist just to manage the volume. On the 12th day after the video's release, Lawrence Hadley from Contech arrived unannounced, this time without his entourage of executives. His demeanor had shifted dramatically from his previous visit, the arrogance replaced by tight-lipped pragmatism. We need to talk, he said simply. Privately. Marcus, Elena, and Alec led him to the office, closing the door on the busy garage where 3 customers waited for consultations. Contech is prepared to issue a formal apology for any misunderstandings regarding Reynolds Automotive, Hadley began, choosing his words carefully. We're also willing to withdraw any interest in this property and provide compensation for any inconvenience caused. Inconvenience? Elena repeated incredulously. You tried to destroy our business. Twice. Hadley's jaw tightened. We're trying to resolve this situation amicably. Our legal team has prepared a settlement offer. He slid a document across the desk. In exchange for removing the video and signing a non-disclosure agreement, Contech will pay 5 times our original offer for this property, without requiring you to sell. Alec picked up the document, scanning the figures. The amount was substantial, life-changing. Money, and if we refuse? Marcus asked. Mr. Reynolds, surely you understand the practical realities, Hadley replied. Contech has resources you can't match. While this current social media situation is unfortunate, these things blow over. Think about your long-term future. Marcus stood, his movement so smooth and confident that it momentarily startled Hadley, who still struggled to reconcile the blind man's capabilities with his disability. Mr. Hadley, I've spent 15 years adapting to a world that wasn't designed for people like me, Marcus said evenly. I've faced discrimination, doubt, and dismissal. Through it all, I've relied on 2 things, my skills and my integrity. He moved to stand directly in front of the Contech executive. Your offer values. Only one of those things. My answer is no. Hadley's composure cracked. This is a mistake. Victor Krauss has already accepted our settlement. He signed the NDA and resigned his position. You're on your own now. I've been on my own before, Marcus replied calmly. I prefer it to compromising what's right. After Hadley departed, Elena turned to her father in disbelief. Dad, that was enough money to secure our future completely. Are you sure? Some things cost more than they're worth, Marcus replied. I won't be silenced about what they did, not just to us, but to how many others before us. Alec had remained silent during the exchange, studying the settlement document. This isn't just about money, he observed. They're scared. The Attorney General's investigation must be finding something substantial. His prediction proved accurate. 3 days later, breaking news alerts announced that the State Attorney General had filed formal charges against Contech Industries for systematic predatory business practices, citing evidence from multiple whistleblowers, Alec's filing among them. The investigation had uncovered a pattern spanning 5 states and dozens of properties. Contech executives had specifically targeted businesses owned by minorities, elderly proprietors, and disabled individuals, using coordinated tactics to devalue properties before purchasing them at fractions of their worth. Victor's dealership, European Motorworks, faced its own reckoning. Following the negative publicity, the luxury car manufacturers whose vehicles they serviced launched an internal review. Finding numerous customer complaints that had been suppressed and evidence of substandard repair practices, 3 major manufacturers revoked their certification, a death knell for a high-end service center. As news of the charges spread, Marcus's phone rang again, this time from the State Licensing Board. Mr. Reynolds, this is Director Harmon from the Automotive Repair Licensing Division. I'm calling to personally apologize for the unnecessary investigation triggered by the complaint against your business. We've dismissed it entirely and are implementing new protocols to prevent such discriminatory complaints in the future. The bank followed suit, not only unfreezing their account, but offering a formal apology and compensation for the improper action. The manager personally visited the garage, explaining that they had acted on pressure from influential clients without proper verification, a mistake they were now rectifying through improved policies. 2 weeks after their video's release, Marcus sat in the office reviewing the day's appointments with Elena, a schedule now booked solid for 3 months, with diagnostically challenging vehicles from across the country. We've received workshop invitations from 4 technical colleges, Elena reported. They want you to demonstrate your non-visual diagnostic techniques to their students. Interesting, Marcus mused. I've never considered teaching. There's more, she continued. 3 classic car collectors with extensive private collections have requested consulting contracts, and that automotive accessibility organization wants you to be their keynote speaker at next month's convention. Marcus shook his head in amazement. From nearly bankrupt to booked solid in a month. Life changes quickly. Speaking of change, Eleanor said hesitantly, we need to discuss Alec's role going forward. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. The man who had once helped orchestrate his downfall had become instrumental in his redemption. The complicated emotions hadn't disappeared, but they had evolved. Where is he now? Marcus asked. Outside, helping Frank diagnose that problematic Chevelle. He's been avoiding imposing on your decision. Marcus stood, reaching for his cane. Let's go talk to him then. Some conversations need to happen face to face, even when one party can't see the other's expression. Together, they stepped into the garage where justice had finally been served. Not through courts or settlements, but through truth and the vindication of abilities that had been dismissed for far too long. 6 months later, Reynolds Automotive looked markedly different. The faded sign had been replaced with a sleek new design. Reynolds and Bennett, mechanics with vision. The garage had expanded into the vacant building next door, doubling their capacity. The waiting area, once sparse and utilitarian, now featured comfortable seating, automotive magazines in both print and braille, and a large screen continuously playing their YouTube channel videos. Most significant was the new training area in the back, a space where Marcus worked with 2 apprentices who had disabilities of their own. Jason, a young veteran with a prosthetic leg, and Mia, a talented mechanic with severe hearing loss. What had begun as a personal vindication had evolved into something larger, a mission to demonstrate that different abilities could become unique strengths in the right environment. The rear differential on that Range Rover is making a subtle, Wine on deceleration, Marcus explained to Jason, guiding the younger man's hand to feel the vibration. Traditional diagnostics might miss it until it fails completely, but you can feel the harmonics changing when I apply this pressure. Nearby, Elena and Mia were designing a visual diagnostic system that translated engine sounds into color patterns, allowing Mia to hear irregularities through sight, while complementing Marcus's ability to detect them through touch. The bell above the door chimed as Alec entered, returning from a meeting with their newest corporate client, a luxury car manufacturer interested in incorporating tactile diagnostic techniques into their technician training program. "How did it go?" Eleanor asked, looking up from her computer. "Better than expected," Alec replied, his expression brightening the room. "They want to develop a pilot program with Marcus as the lead consultant, 6 figures plus expenses." In the month since their confrontation with Contech, Alec had proven himself invaluable, not just as a marketing partner, but as someone who genuinely believed in their mission. The initial business arrangement had gradually evolved into a true partnership based on mutual respect and complementary skills. Marcus had never fully forgiven Alec for his role in the original fraud. Some wounds left scars that remained sensitive to the touch, but he had come to appreciate the man's determination to make amends through meaningful action rather than mere words. "We've also received another invitation," Alec continued, handing Elena a formal letter. "The National Association of Automotive Service Excellence wants Marcus to deliver the keynote at their annual conference. They're launching an initiative to create more inclusive certification pathways for technicians with disabilities." Marcus smiled as he wiped his hands on a shop rag. From pariah to keynote speaker in less than a year, life takes unexpected turns. "Speaking of unexpected," Eleanor interjected, "Frank called. He's bringing by someone special this afternoon. Says it's a surprise." The morning passed in a rhythm that had become comfortably familiar. Marcus working with his apprentices, Eleanor managing the increasingly complex business operations, and Alec balancing their growing media presence with new business development. Their YouTube channel, now with over 1 million subscribers, had evolved beyond simple diagnostic demonstrations. Recent videos featured interviews with mechanics who had disabilities, tutorials on adaptive techniques, and collaborations with automotive engineers on making vehicles more accessible for disabled drivers. Shortly after lunch, Frank's distinctive truck pulled up outside. Through the open garage door, they heard him talking animatedly to someone as they approached. "Marcus," Frank called out, "got someone here who's been following your story from across the country. Big fan of your channel." Marcus turned toward the voice, extending his hand in greeting. "Always nice to meet a viewer." "Mr. Reynolds," replied a young voice, a teenager, Marcus guessed, perhaps 17 or 18. "I can't believe I'm actually meeting you. Your videos changed my life." "This here is Daniel," Frank explained. "He drove 8 hours with his dad to meet you. Show him, son." "I'm blind too," Daniel said, a mix of nervousness and excitement in his voice. "Since birth. Everyone told me I couldn't be a mechanic, that it was impossible. Then my dad showed me your channel." Marcus smiled, genuinely touched. "And what did you think?" "I knew they were wrong," Daniel replied with newfound confidence. "If you could do it, maybe I could too. I've been practicing everything you demonstrate. My dad helps me, but I'm getting better at diagnosing by sound and feel. He's got a natural talent," Daniel's father added. "Figured out what was wrong with our neighbor's lawnmower just by listening to it." Marcus reached out, finding Daniel's shoulder. "Would you like a tour of our shop? See how we've set things up?" As Marcus showed Daniel around, explaining the organizational systems and adaptive techniques he'd developed, Alec and Elena watched from the office doorway. "This is what it was all about," Alec said quietly. "Not just saving one business, but changing perceptions." Elena nodded. "Dad's always been remarkable. The world just needed to see it." By late afternoon, arrangements had been made for Daniel to attend a special weekend workshop Marcus would develop specifically for visually impaired youth interested in mechanics. What had begun as a fan meeting was evolving into the next expansion. Of their mission, after Daniel and his father departed, promising to return for the workshop, Marcus found a quiet moment alone with Alec in the office. "Something on your mind?" Alec asked, sensing Marcus's contemplative mood. "I've been thinking about that day when you first came in with the Ferrari," Marcus replied. "About paths and purposes. You came seeking redemption. I was fighting for survival. Neither of us imagined where it would lead. Regrets?" Alec asked. Carefully, Marcus shook his head. No, despite everything, the painful truths, the difficult fight, we've built something meaningful, something that will outlast both of us. Through the office window, they could see Elena showing Mia and Jason a new diagnostic technique. In the waiting room, a customer watched one of their videos with genuine interest. The garage that had nearly closed now hummed with purpose and possibility. My father used to say that true vision isn't about what your eyes can see, Marcus reflected. It's about what you can imagine and make real. For 15 years, I've lived that truth out of necessity. Now we're helping others discover it by choice. Alec nodded, his own journey from deception to honest purpose having taught him similar lessons. To mechanics with vision, then, he said, echoing their new sign. And to new beginnings, Marcus added, extending his hand. As they shook hands, no longer as reluctant allies but as genuine partners. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the garage where a blind mechanic had not only saved his family's legacy, but transformed it into something greater than anyone could have imagined. Outside, a classic Corvette pulled into the parking lot, its owner having driven 300 miles to have the legendary blind mechanic diagnose an elusive problem that had stumped a dozen other shops. Another challenge, another opportunity to prove that sometimes seeing clearly requires closing your eyes and trusting your other senses to reveal what might otherwise remain hidden. If you enjoyed this story of unexpected redemption and seeing beyond limitations, please like and subscribe for more tales that remind us that our greatest challenges often become our most powerful gifts. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that sometimes our perceived weaknesses can become our greatest strengths when viewed through a different lens.